AST 2016. This is interviews, music reviews, and more. This is The Hodder Show.
What is up, everybody? We are rolling out of you here today on episode 307 of The Hodder Show. I hope you guys are doing absolutely fantastic. Thank you so very much for tuning in and clicking that play button on today's episode of the podcast. I got a fun episode for you here today, as I do every single week right here on The Hodder Show. It is time for another Ask Hodder Anything. A little segment I like to do here on the show once in a while. It's basically a Q&A. You guys ask me something and I will answer said question. And we got some really good ones, some really interesting ones here today. So I'm very excited about that. Before we jump in, I of course want to give a shout out to my man James Wilson, who was on the show last week, and everybody who supported that episode. That was a lot of fun, man, getting to chat with James. You know, as I mentioned on the episode, and he mentioned on the episode, he's been listening to the show since 2017. So that was very cool for me to have someone who, in a ways, is basically kind of like an OG Hodder Show fan. So big shouts again to you, James. Thank you so much for being such a great guest. And if you did not hear that episode, I implore you to go check it out. It is a great episode. Check it out in video on the YouTube or on audio version on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Stitcher, CastBox, whatever. However you listen to podcasts, go check it out. And let me tell you, we got some cool stuff coming up here over the next few weeks. Halloween is right around the corner, and you guys know me. I always try and do something for Halloween. Last year, I kind of dropped the ball, didn't have anything new and exciting. But this year, I got some really cool planned. I actually have 3 or 4 things planned for Halloween. And I don't know how everything's going to turn out, but we'll see. I also have a really cool interview that is kind of Halloween paranormal related that I'm really excited about that I should be doing in the next couple of weeks. So we got a lot of still cool stuff coming up here on The Hodder Show. So keep it tuned. If you have not yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button to keep up with everything that I do here on The Hodder Show. And without further ado, we are going to jump into this Ask Hodder Anything. Let's get into it. All right, rocking and rolling, shucking and jiving here on the Ask Hodder Anything. What did I just say there? Ask Hodder Anything. That's funny. I should use that. Just kidding. So I have a collection of questions. Some of these are from social media. I put the word out a couple of days ago to send me your questions, and I got some really good ones, some really fun ones. Some of these are from people who direct messaged me. Some of them are from people who just asked me in person when they saw me. And then I have a few of them that anytime people ask me questions that I think are like really fun, kind of Ask Hodder Anything Q&A type questions, I write them on a note in my phone so that whenever I do my next Ask Hodder Anything, and I tell the person, say, hey, keep an eye out because the next time I do a Q&A episode or an Ask Hodder Anything, I will answer your question. So I have a few of those as well, and at least one of them I think is something I haven't really discussed yet. So I'm really excited about that. But jumping in head first, we have a bit of a doozy of a question here from my man, Mr. Jason Reese from J Bridges Alerts, the man who takes care of the Hodder Show's graphic needs, whether it's logos or banners or interview tiles or t-shirts, anything of that nature. My man, J Bridges Alerts, takes care of it for me. So thank you, Jason, for everything you do for this podcast and for bringing it with a great question. Jason would like to know, which band would be top of your list for the Hodder Show Music Showcase to do a listening party with and then interview about the actual EP or album? So basically, if you guys aren't familiar, also I should add, he says living, current, or band from history. So for those of you who are not familiar, the Hodder Show Music Showcase, lately I have been having the artist who created the record or the EP on to kind of give us a little background on it. Then we listen to the full thing. And then the artist kind of breaks it down track by track for us. The way I used to do the Hodder Show Music Showcases is I would just kind of talk about the band, where they're from and things of that nature, some fun history, play the EP, and then give my thoughts. And those were a lot of fun, but I did the track by track stuff, and that has really resonated with a lot of people as well as the artists themselves. They've really been enjoying it. So that's probably for the most part what I'm going to do going forward with the Hodder Show Music Showcase. Because as much as I love interviewing bands and musicians about just, their career and things like that, doing kind of a deep dive into the recording of the album, the lyrics, things of that nature, it's really, really fun. And I have a lot of really great memories from doing those episodes. Recently, I did one with Matthew Lane on his EP, and that was a very cathartic episode for Matthew, as well as, for myself and his fan base. So that was really a lot of fun. But a band that I would love to do that with, I mean, is there any doubt in anyone's mind that this is obviously a band from history that I couldn't do it with right now? Well, technically I could, I guess. I would love to sit down with Lane Staley and Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains and do a Hodder Show Music Showcase on Dirt, which is my favorite Alice in Chains album. I'm looking at the vinyl right now. I got it up on my wall. One of my favorite records, top 5 records of all time for me. And to be able to have them break down track by track and really dive into those songs would be utterly amazing. And I'm sure a lot of people would agree with me. But I mean, that being said, also just to interview Lane Staley and Jerry Cantrell would be amazing. I'd want to interview them both separately, but I also love to interview Jerry Cantrell like as of today, just to pick his brain, I think that'd be a lot of fun. So I hope that answers the question, Jason. But a few honorable mentions on that too, because there's a few others that I would really, really love to do a Hodder Show Music Showcase on, records that are really important to me for one reason or another. One of which is Stain's Break the Cycle, and doing a track by track commentary on that record, Break the Cycle, with Aaron Lewis and Mike Mushok would be freaking awesome. That would be really cool. But I'd want to do it with them from that era. Not so much as of today, but like in that era. I'd love to do that. I'd love to interview both of them, obviously, as well. But more so from back in the day there, because, Aaron's a very different human being now than he was back then. But I'd love to interview Mike Mushok. That'd be freaking awesome. He seems like an awesome interview, and I love Aaron Lewis. So, I mean, that'd be awesome. Seven Dust Cold Day Memory, with track-by-track commentary from the entire band, because I couldn't pick just one or two members. That would be awesome. I love Cold Day Memory. It's my favorite Seven Dust record, probably because that was the first true return to form Seven Dust record with Clint coming back from when I was a fan of the band, because I became a fan of the band during the era that Clint was not a part of it, and I'm such a huge Clint Lowry fan. I'm looking at the Hello Demons Meet Skeletons set of CD, the book here that he did. And I would love to hear the whole band talk about that record, because it was such a important record and such a process of healing as well for everyone involved in that record. And they have a really cool DVD out that came with the CD that was kind of like a making of the record. And that's one of my favorite. I love watching that DVD because it's just, you can tell how happy they are and just to be creating music again. And it's so cool. I'm such a big fan of that Seven Dust era without Clint. But I mean, come on, that's Seven Dust. You think of Seven Dust, Clint's in Seven Dust, man. I mean, you got to have Clint Lowry in Seven Dust. So that's definitely one for sure. A couple others, Clint Lowry. I'd love to have Clint on for an interview just because I'm such a humongous fan of his. He's one of the constant musicians who is always, no matter what I go through in this life, there seems to be a Clint Lowry song or lyric that just resonates with me in some way, no matter what it is, which is so interesting to me. But I would love to pick Clint's brain on the entire Hello Demons Meet Skeletons catalog, which, if you aren't familiar with Hello Demons Meet Skeletons, it was Clint's kind of solo acoustic project that he did. But then the last offering he had with Hello Demons Meet Skeletons was a full... It was a more of like a full band type EP that had... Sorry, guys, I'm actually just pulling it up. It was called Choices. I literally have this book here, and it has all the... He had 4 EPs in total with the Hello Demons Meet Skeletons project. There's chills, words that sing well, uncomfortable silence, and then choices. And I have this awesome lyric book. It was signed by him and everything. It's such a cool project that didn't get enough recognition, in my opinion. And his solo stuff he's doing now is amazing. I love what he's doing now too. But the Hello Demons Meet Skeletons project had such an effect on me. When it came out, it was such an interesting time of my life, and so much of that music really struck a chord with me, because that's really the stuff I really truly love, is acoustic music and singer-songwriter acoustic music stuff. And I just love to pick his brain on it and just have him walk me through each song. I think that would be such a cool experience, especially choices, because that was at a point where he knew this project was going to be laid to rest, because he wanted to move on to do what he was doing. Call Me No One with Morgan, and he was getting ready to get back in the swing of things with Seven Dust More, and he wanted to do kind of like a more rock-esque project, whereas this is more like kind of singer-songwriter-y stuff, I guess. But that'd be one for sure. A couple more, one of which, again, shouldn't be a big a big guess to anybody. And that is 3 Days Grace's 1X. I don't want to sit down with Barry and do that, because that'd be really cool, just to pick his brain about the guitar riffs and things of that nature. And then also, I would love to do Outsider with Barry as well, because I love that record so much. And I would want to hear all about the making of that record, because that was the first record really that they did without Adam that was like, there's a different sound. It's still 3 Days Grace at its core, obviously, and so was Human, but there were moments on Human where I'm like, I could hear Adam singing these songs, whereas Outsider to me was like, this is a different band now. And I mean, Outsider is one of my favorite 3 Days Grace records. It's a very, very, very close second to 1X. I love Outsider. My second favorite 3 Days Grace song is on Outsider, and it is one of my favorite riffs Barry's ever done. And actually, funny story, my favorite 3 Days Grace song and riff is actually a Painkiller. So there you go. There's that. But that's one for sure. And last but not least, one I would really love to do, and I mean, obviously I'd love to have Barry on and all these people on just for interviews, but one person I would really love to have on, because I don't think this band gets anywhere near enough recognition for how incredible they are, and this musician does not get enough recognition, and that is the band Cold with their record Year of the Spider, which, if you are in my age group, you know Year of the Spider, man. That record, it was 2003 it came out, and I mean, that record was huge, man, and they kind of fell off the earth, unfortunately. I don't know what really happened with them, but they had a great follow-up to that record that I love. And they've since then had two other amazing records. They just made a comeback 2 years ago. And I love that new record too. And Scooter is such a underrated musician, man. He's amazing. One of my favorite vocalists and songwriters. Just absolutely love. I would love to sit down with him and do a track by track and do an interview with him for sure. So those were a few. Hope that answers the question, Jason. And, you know, it gives you guys a little bit of a window into the soul with that here. I got two questions that I think were meant as a joke, but my man, Mr. Mark Wiley from Matria, if you guys don't know Matria, they're badass. Go check them out. If you're into prog stuff at all, amazing stuff. He would like to know, what's your favorite Nickelback song? And I told him, I responded saying I could do a whole episode just on this. So Mark, man, I'm not sure if you remember me mentioning to you before. Maybe you do, and that's why you asked. But I am a huge Nickelback fan. No shame. Like, I am a giant Nickelback fan. They were my first favorite band. My first four records I ever bought were all Nickelback records. So what can I say? So I'm going to do this in 3 parts here, folks. Okay. My favorite all-time Nickelback song is Leader of Man, because of the content of the song, because I actually hate the content of the song. It's a song about mushrooms, and I just don't give a shit about that. But it's just the overall vibe of the song, the guitar work, the vocals, everything. I love that song. That's one of my favorite songs to play. I love playing that song. Leader of Man. And it's got to be my favorite Nickelback song. I love it so much. A song for me that overall is my favorite guitar song for Nickelback is Where Do I Hide? I love that freaking song, that riff, everything. If you hear that song and don't think at least the guitar work is cool, I don't know what to tell you, because it's dirty and it's so awesome. And then just to piss everybody off, my favorite guitar solo from Nickelback is for the song Someday. And here's a little fun fact about TJ. My second favorite guitar solo ever is from Someday. I love that guitar solo. I can't tell you why. Well, actually, yes, I can. It's because you can sing it. So it's just such a perfect little simple solo. And I'm a huge fan of that. Obviously, it does not hold a candle to my all-time favorite song solo, which is Nutshell by Alice in Chains. But it is definitely second. I love that one. So hopefully that answers your question, Mark. And then he doubled down by saying, okay, what's your favorite Trapped song? Which, obviously, it's Headstrong. I mean, back off or I will take you on, okay? Listen, here's the thing. That 2000s era of music is my all-time favorite, man. I mean, I grew up with that stuff. The late 90s, mid to late 2010s or 2000s, 2010s. That's some of my favorite music ever, man. And, you know, I was in high school when Headstrong came out, man. I mean, come on. You know, Headstrong, it's a jam. Is it lame now, almost 20 years later? Of course it is. But a lot of music is lame back in 20 years. Yes, Chris Brown, who is the vocalist of Trapped, is a fucking loser, but they had some decent songs. So what are you going to say, you know? Apparently they kicked him out too, which I think is hilarious. The whole thing with Trapped is just, it's sad, but it's just fucking hilarious. And if you don't know what happened with Trapped, I'm not even going to get into it. All I'm going to say is is his name actually Chris Brown? I think I messed up his name. No, his name's actually Chris Brown, I think. Pretty sure. It's Chris something. Browning or something, whatever. The vocalist of Trapped. He's a fucking idiot. But I'm not a huge Chris Brown fan either. But we'll talk about that another time. All right, so the next question that we have here is actually from Michelle Reese, the Mrs. Reese of Mrs. Reese's Vintage Beauty Parlor out there in Belleville. If you're looking for a fantastic beauty salon or beauty parlor to go check Michelle out. She asks, seeing as it is officially the autumn season, what's the best Halloween/horror movie ever made? Now, this is interesting for a couple of reasons. Number one, up until pretty recently, I have not been a very big fan of the horror movie genre. I would say up until maybe the last couple of years for sure. Maybe the last 3 years, slowly I got into it. And Sam always was a huge fan of horror movies, but I was never into them too much. And it's funny because my whole reasoning for not liking horror movies, I've talked about it 100 times before on the show. Yes, I have a hyperactive imagination, blah, blah, blah. You know, I see things and things of that nature. So I'd always freak myself out. I was a big scaredy cat. But then also, I found a lot of horror movies kind of lame because I never got into the story. And there's a few that stand out to me. And a series of horror movies that really, I think, made me into such a fan. There's two things that really made me into a fan of horror stuff. Actually, three things. Number one, as much as a lot of people shit on it, the American Horror Story series really helped me kind of get into the story of more creepy things. It's like, yeah, it wasn't super scary stuff, but it was just like, I was kind of like, okay, this is a nice way to kind of dip my feet in. And then also, the Conjuring series. Now, some people might hear that and go, you didn't like horror movies but gone into Conjuring? What? The whole series of Conjuring movies, all Annabelle, all that stuff, because it is such a vast story and it's there's a lot of lore going on, if that makes sense. I really was able to kind of dip my feet into it a little bit more. And it gave me a little bit more to chew on, so to speak. And I really enjoy all those movies. Probably my favorite one out of the series is probably The Nun, just because of its time period and things of that nature. But I actually also really liked The Devil Made Me Do It. I thought that was interesting. I know a lot of people don't like that one, but I don't know. I liked it. But one other series that really got me into, again, because of the story, was The Haunting of Hill House, which a lot of people really enjoyed that. That was a limited series. And now there's another one coming out from the same creator. So I'm really excited about that. Didn't like Bly Manor as much, but it was still a really good show. It wasn't Hill House. Hill House was such a... Oh, man. It's like way up here. You know what I mean? And I think maybe Bly Manor should have came first, because it wasn't as scary or as creepy. It was more just like a good, kind of more of a psychological type thing, which I really dig that as well. One movie we saw actually really recently that is fantastic, and I really, really enjoyed the movie, and I didn't really hear much about it, and it was kind of a throwaway thing until I watched it, and I really enjoyed it. Was the Babadook. Babadook, you know, that movie. I really, really enjoyed it, and it's very psychological. It's not super creepy, but it was a really good movie. And, you know, maybe some people might hear that and be like, oh, those suck, man. But, man, there was one movie that scared me so bad during one scene that, like, I literally had to turn it off. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Oh, and I'm going to draw a blank on it. Oh, no. Shoot. Can't remember the name of it. It's like, you know, Ethan Hawke's in it. Ethan Hawke. Stall. Ethan Hawke's in it. And it's a horror movie. And it's really good. Ethan Hawke horror film. Ethan Hawke horror film. Sinister. I liked Sinister. I was invested in Sinister. And then there was one scene where, and Sam thought this was really lame, but there was one scene in Sinister where he's walking by like a video of the figure. And the figure turns and looks directly at the camera. And it was different. It wasn't like it was looking at the camera. I was like, this thing is looking past the camera. It's looking at you. And just the way it did it, it freaked me out so much. I had to call it a night. And man, that's a good, freaky, creepy, psychological movie. And the way it ends and everything. Oh, like just... amazing. Utterly amazing. I can't say enough great things about Sinister. On a side note, Michelle, the best Halloween movie, obviously the Halloween series, you know, the originals, I like those too. But some more lighthearted movies. I love Halloween Town. I like that. That's one Sam really likes. Oh my goodness. The Charlie Brown Halloween special or whatever it is, the Great Pumpkin and all that. I like that too. Those are a couple, you know. I'm not much of a horror buff or anything, but hopefully that answers your question, kind of some elongated answer there. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know that you and Jason are into that stuff, so I would love to hear what you guys think. And also some recommendations, please. Hit me up. I would love to. 'Tis the season. Well, actually, technically not in October yet, but I plan on watching a lot of horror movies in October, so I can kind of catch up a little bit. So I'd like to make a little list, so hit me up. Next, we have a question from Mr. Joe Loving of Meanbeard. And this is another kind of a doozy here. If you could attend any concert, past or present, what would it be? Present, I would love to go see Jerry Cantrell in Toronto. But unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen. I would love to go see Jerry Cantrell solo in Toronto. That'd be amazing. So that's one that I would love to go see. And I would love, or would have loved, I guess is the proper terminology. I would have loved to have seen any Alice in Chains show with Lane. I mean, I think that's pretty, that's pretty obvious for me, anyone who knows me. Obviously, the MTV Unplugged show stands out because it had such an influence on me. But at that point, Lane was very sick with his addiction. And as much as it is an amazing performance, I think that I would have really loved to have seen kind of like early Dirt era Alice in Chains. Would have been just amazing to see. I would have loved to have been there and experienced that. I have a lot of envy to Joe and to Mr. Matt Bischoff for, being there in those early days and, getting to experience that because I'm such a fan, and I'm such a Lane fan. I would have loved to have been there for that for sure. So hopefully that answers that question, Joe. And also I'd love to see Joe Loving in his living room playing guitar. There you go. All right, so the next question that I have here is from my boy, Mr. Garrett Coles, a.k.a. Dark Runner Gaming. Go check him out on Twitch if you're looking for a entertaining Twitch streamer to watch. He wants me, this is going to be fun, build your perfect burger and sides. Okay, I'm really sorry because this is going to be really, really easy for me. Straight up, guys, it's the Peter Pickle from Peter Burgers. To me, the perfect burger is a hamburger with pickles. A good hamburger with pickles, cheese, lettuce, ketchup, mustard, mayo. And that's, to me, that's literally the perfect burger. Now, you take that a step further, you add deep fried pickles onto that and this dill sauce. Oh, I love dill pickles on my burger. So to me, that's it. That's the perfect. Now, the only thing I do differently, I take the Peter Pickle, extra pickle, and I'd hodder it, which is making it a double, of course. If you walk into my friends at Peter Burgers and you order a burger and say, hey, can you hodder that for me? They'll know what you mean. They will double that for you. So the perfect burger, it's a double Peter Burger, extra pickle, maybe a little extra dill sauce on there because, that's what I like. And if I'm feeling adventurous, I might get it as a smash burger, which got the onion in there and stuff. But I love the Peter burger itself so much. That's all I need right there. So double Peter Pickle, extra pickle, maybe a little extra dill sauce on there. Make it a little messier. You know what I'm saying? And for my sides, I'm going to get two sides for this. I'm going to do the full course meal here. For my two sides, I'm going to have the chunky potato poutine from Dill Death Barbecue because, come on. Now, as a runner-up to this, the Till Death Burger is definitely a close second. But, come on, the Peter Pickle. Oh my God, I just thought of something. Peter Pickle, double burger, add pulled pork from Till Death Barbecue. Oh my... I need a minute. Okay, I'm changing my answer. Double Peter Pickle, extra pickle, extra dill, add pulled pork from Till Death Barbecue with the chunky potato poutine on the side and with coleslaw on the side from Peter Burgers because that Peter Burgers coleslaw, whew. So that's the ticket right there. Again, for those of you who didn't hear, double Peter Pickle, extra pickle, little extra dill sauce, add Till Death Barbecue pulled pork. For the sides, I'm getting the chunky potato poutine from Till Death Barbecue and the coleslaw from Peter Burgers. And for dessert, a nice slice of just regular old New York style cheesecake. And to drink, we're having a nice, refreshing, ice cold Diet Coke. That's right. Or if I want to have an alcoholic beverage a refreshing ice cold from the bottom of the cooler. Moosehead Light. That's the ticket right there. How's that for an answer there, Dark Runner? What do you think of that, buddy? That sound good? That sound good to me, man. By the way, before I continue, I would like to apologize if you guys are hearing this weird noise. It is actually a fan that I cannot get to turn off right now. I don't know why it's not turning off. I had this problem once before, and I thought I figured it out. So if there's this weird background noise, I apologize. I'm going to try and take it out in post, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to. So again, I apologize that you guys are hearing that. Continuing on with the Ask Hodder Anything here today on the Hodder Show, my wonderful Aunt Ellen has a very nice question for me. How have your mom and dad inspired you? This is pretty easy to answer if I'm being honest, because both my parents and the way I was brought up, I was mostly led through example on how to treat people and how to act as a human being. You know, my parents are both very good people and they're courteous and nice to everybody. So I was taught how to, in a way, I guess inspired, taught, whatever, how to act and how to, you know, be with people. And my mom, you know, when I was younger too, especially with my learning disability and that, like, the patience that she had with me has inspired me a lot, because it's led me to try and have more patience with myself and in my everyday life, and just the way to treat people. And then my father, and seeing him interact with people and how he would treat them. Like, it's such a small thing when you're a kid that you don't really realize. But to me, especially now that I'm, you know, 30 and officially, I guess you could say officially, no questions asked, MA old man now, you know, looking back, it's really made me realize just how much of an impact that kind of stuff had on me. And I guess you don't really realize it until you get older. So that's definitely how they inspire me, and my whole family, really, obviously my Ellen too, and just how to treat people, you know, how to act as a human being. You know, my grandparents and all my aunts and uncles and everything. Just, I'm very lucky and very fortunate to have such a great family around, for sure. And the next question I have here is from my buddy Dylan, and I actually have a couple different questions from him. The first one is kind of just a quick funny thing. How much do you love not commuting to work anymore? Oh, buddy, I love it. It is great. I'm so happy I don't have to do that commute anymore. As much as I miss the school I was at. And sometimes I do miss the commute, because that was my podcast time. But I'm getting caught up again now. I'm kind of figuring out at my one school I go to, I can, you know, have a couple hours to catch up on podcast listening. So that has been great. He also would like to know, do you still play guitar much anymore? I have played guitar more in the last, I would say, 2 months than I have probably in the last year and a half. I don't know why. The Cottage, I guess, you know, with Tragically Hip night. I'm on a total Tragically Hip binge right now, so I've been learning some Tragically Hip stuff. Mostly Fiddler's Green, because I love that song so much, and Grace too. So maybe that's why, but I find that as I'm getting older, music still is becoming more important to me. And as much as, yes, I have all these projects on the go and all the stuff I want to do, it's still really important to me. So I definitely am playing it more the last couple of months than I have for a while. So hopefully that answers that. And what has your favorite episode of the year been so far? That's tricky. For a number of reasons. I mean, I'm probably going to have to say episode 3. It was my first in-person recording I had done in a very long time, especially post-COVID. It's my 300th episode. It's my first time having, you know, a local business on. It was such a fun episode. It was very cathartic in a lot of ways, too. So that's definitely one. I mean, man, my episode I had with Matt there a couple of weeks ago was really, it was fun, but it was also very cathartic and really deep conversation. So I love stuff like that, man. I may fall in love with podcasting. Shout outs to my homies Brenna and Kate from Lifeless. That was a really fun podcast. Unfortunately, they stopped doing their podcasts very shortly after, just because life got in the way. But I think they're going to be coming back, so that's good. They're a really fun, entertaining podcast. It was fun to get to chat with them. I've had so many. James last week. Doing the 5-year anniversary special. Come on, that's got to be one. That was so much work. It is crazy, but that's definitely got to be one. There's so many, man, but those are definitely a few that stand out to me. So hopefully that answers your questions. My buddy Andrew, you've talked before about audio dramas. What are they, and what are your favorites? So for those who don't know, an audio drama is basically a play in podcast format or audio format. So there's a lot of narration, there's a lot of voice acting, there's a lot of sound effects and sound design and things of that nature. And what I'm obsessed with right now is the horror audio drama genre. And my all-time favorites, there's two that are pretty much neck and neck. One is called The Grey Rooms, and it is, oh my goodness, it is fantastic. It is just amazing. If you're at all into horror or creepy stuff, you gotta check it out, man. It is just amazing. It's all based around a really cool story, but then also there's like other stories within that story that are like creepypastas and things of that nature. And it's amazing. The voice acting, the sound design, it really sets a new standard, I think, anyway, for audio dramas. And then obviously also SCP Archives. I mean, come on. SCP Archives is amazing. If you're into the SCP stuff at all and you haven't listened to SCP Archives, it's the best SCP related content out there. Aside from Dr. Void, of course. Shout outs to my boy. But man, let me tell you, it's amazing. It's utterly amazing. SCP Archives really opened my eyes to that genre and really has made me want to do it. If I'm being honest, the Grey Rooms and SCP Archives are my biggest inspiration to want to get into that world, which we're going to leave it at that for now, but that's definitely are the two. So definitely check those out. But there's lots of other ones too. Like there's a lot of D&D podcasts that I think kind of sort of fall into that category too. There's like audio dramas that aren't necessarily creepy or anything. So those are definitely a few you should check out there. So hopefully that answers your question, Andrew. And Andrew would also like to know, how goes the horror writing? For those of you who don't know, I have been dabbling in the Reddit no sleep community on and off now for, well, not on and off. I've been doing it pretty steadily actually for the last few months. Started randomly, had no desire to ever do anything like that. And basically now it has become its own thing, and I have a community on there, and it's gaining a little bit of a following, which is kind of cool. We just hit 250 members actually in the community as of this morning with a new story I just put up. So that's very cool. I'm very active on there. If you're at all into creepy stuff for the no sleep community on Reddit, check it out. The Dread Files is the name of the account on there, if you're into that. And some people think that's weird that I give it out like that, and I'm like, why wouldn't I? I'm trying to build a community. But all in character and things like that. I'm building a world there, so come hang out, come check it out if you're into that kind of thing, or just stay tuned. Something tells me you might be hearing some content from the Dread Files in just a few weeks, so keep an eye and ear out for that. Hopefully that answers your question, Andrew. I know you are kind of keeping an eye on what I'm doing there, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Now, the next question I have here, which is actually the last question from someone that I actually have named. The rest of them were just random questions that I forgot who asked me, so I apologize. So if you're listening to this, be sure to give me shit that I didn't mention your name. Emily would like to know, what shows are you binge watching right now? American Horror Story. I didn't really watch much of it. I watched a little bit here and there. I watched Freak Show with Sam, and that's what made me really fall in love with it, because Freak Show is amazing. So randomly, we decided to go back and get into Asylum, because she never saw Asylum, and obviously I did not either. So we've been thoroughly enjoying Asylum and just binging through it. I think we're on like episode 6 right now. Oh my gosh, it is amazing. I absolutely love Asylum. So now we have the collection of questions that I've just kind of collected that people have asked me since the last Ask Hodder Anything. If you hear this and these were one of your questions, please give me shit, because I don't remember who asked me these. I'm really bad for this. I really wish I knew who asked this question, because it's kind of funny. My favorite breakfast. My favorite breakfast to make is just a simple bacon and eggs routine with hash browns. That's what I like. I love making breakfast, so I actually really like that. I also do like making Eggs Benedict. I've only really done it, I think I've only actually done it once, but I liked doing it for Sam because it's her favorite breakfast food, and it was really challenging to do, but apparently I pulled it off, so that's fun. But there is a place in Peterborough here that make it is called the Speakeasy Cafe, and they make something called the Blind Pig, and it's literally bacon and eggs, but it's like a double order of bacon. Oh, it is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Their home fries, everything is so good. So go check them out. Also, there is a place in town here called PJ's, and they make a killer breakfast as well. I love their breakfast. They're tied neck and neck as far as I'm concerned for the best breakfast in Peterborough. PJ's is great, but PJ's has a lot of other stuff too that's great, whereas I don't know about the Speakeasy. So take that how you will. What was the scariest moment of your life? Scariest moment? What was the scariest moment of my life? I'm gonna think about that for a second. Scariest moment of my life was probably when... Oh my gosh, I know what the scariest moment of my life was. I thought I was going to die on Behemoth. That's... Sam took me on Behemoth, and I swear to God, my thing wasn't working right. My little bar thing, and I thought I was going to die. So that was probably the scariest moment of my life, if I'm being honest with you guys. Because I'm a bitch, but that's definitely... Yeah, I don't know. That's probably one. I can't think of anything else. Ugh, I'm sorry. That's all I got. Who would you choose to have as a co-host if you could choose anyone? I've dabbled in the idea of having a co-host before. Probably Conrad Thompson, because I just love Conrad Thompson so much, even though it's just not a wrestling podcast. I just love to shoot the shit with Conrad every day. I think that'd be a lot of fun. This is really important. Because I haven't talked about it yet, and I wanted to make sure that I spoke about it, because apparently I haven't yet. What the fuck happened with you and Mikes and Beers? What happened with Mikes and Beers is that I was kicked off Mikes and Beers because Ryan is a tyrant who... not a tyrant, a dictator who wants things to be done his way or the highway. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. That's a joke. Oh my goodness. No. It's just jokes, folks. Just jokes. So... basically, really quickly in a nutshell, it's a really boring story. I decided that it would be better for them. My goal was always for Ryan, especially Ryan, because he's been involved with the podcast for so long. My goal was always to have Ryan do his own content, because I think he's super entertaining and he could do it. That was always my goal. When I brought him on as my co-host in Mikes and Beers, my goal was to eventually for him to break off and do his own thing. And then when Sam came in, that was kind of sort of my same intentions as well, was for them to kind of do something outside of Mikes and Beers. But they did an episode without me, and I thought it was fantastic. And I just kind of went, you know what? I couldn't add anything to this. If anything, I would take away from this format, because just Mikes and Beers for me was just me getting drunk and being an idiot, you know, which is entertaining and fun. And some people have said that they miss me, and I appreciate that. But they did such a fantastic job with that format of really trying to drill in and have a good, entertaining podcast, but then also still being informative about the beer and things of that nature. And I really liked that format. And I just said, you know what, guys? I don't think I'm going to bring anything to the table on this. And I kind of wanted to focus my efforts on the Hodder Show and also this other project I'm slowly working on, and my horror writing and things of that nature, and also Mean Beard and stuff. So I was starting this new job. I was like, man, my free time is going to start getting even harder to schedule around. And it was already getting hard for us to schedule recordings. And I know that Ryan really wanted to do bi-weekly, and I just went, you know what? You guys just go on without me. It's just going to be easier. I think it's going to be better in the long run. And they've been killing it. So I cannot be happier for my friends, Mr. Kraft Woody and Samantha R.Q. Luxon, for killing it. Go check them out, Mikes and Beers podcast. If you have not, be sure to go check them out. You've done a few different podcasts. What's next? So for those of you who don't know, obviously the Hodder Show. I also have done Two Guys in a Game, which is a podcast that is dead, R.I.P. It was a gaming podcast with my buddy Cazor Jones. Obviously, Mikes and Beers. I started Mikes and Beers and was a part of that, and I'm still a part of it. I'm still the producer of the show. I forgot to mention that. I'm still very much a part of Mikes and Beers. And then also, I produced a horror story narration podcast as well. I've helped out with a couple other random podcasts. Wanted to start up a wrestling podcast, you know. What's next is I'm going to keep focusing my efforts mostly on the Hodder Show. That's never going to change. I love doing this podcast too much. It's too much fun to not focus on it. But I got something cooking. And I've already talked about it a little bit, but the horror audio drama world is something I want to get into, because it is, for me, it's that theater of the mind next level of what I'm doing. And I really, really, really want to get into that in some capacity, and I already know what I'm going to do. I already have some content that I own, so who knows? Keep an eye. Dread Files, folks. Keep an eye. And the last question that I'm going to answer here is we're going to end off on a really good, fun, positive note. What keeps you going after 5 years and 300 episodes? It's really, really simple. I love podcasting. I love expressing myself this way. It's fun. I love interacting with you guys. Anytime that someone says, man, I love your podcast, or hey, your podcast has entertained me, it makes me feel amazing. You know, speaking with James last week, him saying that, you know, he basically in some ways kind of grew up listening to my podcast. Like, that's crazy. That's insane, right? Because he was, you know, 15 or 14 when he first heard it. Now he's, you know, 18 years old or whatever, or 19. And that's crazy to think about. You know, I had a very small role in his life, and it's like, yo, what? Like, that's crazy. So that really keeps me going. The love of this. Sometimes you go through peaks and valleys when you're doing a podcast or anything creative, and obviously I'll go through my valleys, you know. But lately it's been mostly peaks. It's fun. I love doing it, and that's so important for anything you do, because if you love what you do, no matter what it is, you are already a success, my friend. Keep that in mind. Never, ever forget that. And with that, I'm going to sign off here today. Thank you guys so very much for tuning in to this edition of Ask Hodder Anything. Always a blast getting to do these with you. Be sure to keep it locked here and hit that subscribe button, because I have some very exciting interviews coming up and some really, really great content. Keep an eye out. Halloween's coming up. I got stuff coming. I promise I am not going to drop the ball again and not have some Halloween content for you guys. There's going to be some stories being told, so just keep an eye out. I appreciate you. Thank you so very much for listening. Give you the old patented audio fist bump. Boom. And I'll catch you next time on The Hodder Show. Take it easy, guys.